Hey guys, I'm so happy to welcome you back to I'm Fine. My name is Jean Campbell, and I started I'm Fine to share personal stories, practical solutions, and mind body techniques to help listeners move beyond pain and find possibilities, productivity, and positivity. I'm so excited to introduce my guest today, Holly Blakey, who is an unbelievable choreographer, a mother, an incredible person. I went to go and see one of Holly's shows, A Wound with Teeth, and reached out to her as a fan, and we met up, and she told me her inspiration and the story behind A Wound with Teeth, which just really resonated. And I found that the show just touched on every part of the human spirit. It's just amazing that there are these ways of expressing what words can't sometimes. I'm just so excited to share this episode with you. I hope you enjoy it. I'm so happy to be here with you today, Holly. Thank you so much for coming.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Your work has just been so unbelievably inspiring to me. And obviously, when we first connected, I was totally blown away by the kind of origin of where it comes from and your personal story. But before we get into that, I would love to ask you, what does pain mean to you?
What it really would mean to me, pain, would be not fulfilling my truth and the truth of those that I love who are around me, or accepting too much of things that aren't serving me. And that can be physical or emotional, or actually about the world around us, you know. Sometimes pain is like the littleness of things, you know, the painful little beasts and monsters that we live with. I think that the how small they can feel can be the worst part sometimes, you know.
So interesting to hear. It's actually a really beautiful way of describing it. In your experience, why do you think it is that we're so conditioned to run from pain rather than to move through it?
Well, I suppose there's quite like a literal anatomical quality to that that's for safety, right? So we try and protect ourselves and separate ourselves or run from things that are frightening. And I'm trying more and more, and I realize this as well with my kids. I'm trying to sit with discomfort and also their discomfort, and also know that always answering it isn't necessarily key. Sometimes it's allowing for it to be a little bit. I'm trying to learn more of that.
So when it comes to sitting with discomfort, what's the balance between sitting with it, not being consumed by it, but moving through it, and the possible benefits of that?
Well, I think there's an idea of knowing that often pain will be serving something. It will be a symbol. It will be a note to remind us of whatever's going on, be it physical or somewhere in our minds. And I think that the first stage is to accept that it's real. You know, there can be so much hiding or you know, a lot of dissociation. And also, you know, in physical pain can be, even physical pain can be hard to admit, especially as someone who uses their body for their work and, well, really for everything. I think I can sometimes find myself slightly pretending it's not there, you know, and then wanting to acknowledge and accept that and be curious as to its potential, I suppose.
It's almost like a message that we don't want to receive, possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What does it mean to you to live in an embodied way rather than kind of being a bystander of your own life?
Well, I'm so fortunate in that with my work I get to physicalize and embody everything all the time, you know, and I think what a gift, and I try and say this to the dancers, like what amazing gift it is that we are in this room together with all of our thoughts and feelings. however big and small, and we get to physicalize those ideas, and we get to situate them from somewhere really deep inside ourselves and explore what it can be. And it's different, it's different to language, isn't it? Language is, I love language, I love writing, I love reading, but language is of course like a forming of codes. And it boxes things in order for us to relate to one another, to communicate. Whereas moving and having an embodied practice, well, that's held with so much more nuance and things that aren't so explicit to decipher. They are forever expandable. And so I think what a privilege it is that I have to live this way.
I was lucky enough to come to your latest show, A Wound with Teeth, which was unbelievable, and anyone who didn't get the chance to see it, I hope that you do. How does the storytelling depict your personal journey?
I mean, A Wound with Teeth was built on a time when I lost my memory, I guess. I describe it in that way because it's the most simple and easiest way of talking about it. And I wanted to, I mean, how far should I go back? All the way?
Yeah, if you're happy to.
It began as a commission to do some research for an institution in Manchester. And what I loved about them is that they wanted me to radically engage with Manchester. They wanted me to go and make work there and be a part of the community and engaged with the community, not just make a work in London or wherever and take it there. And my only experience of being in Manchester, which was hard to ignore, was the time I was hospitalised in a mental facility as a child. And I really tried to negate it and move away. I wasn't interested in my own sort of trauma. I didn't think it was interesting. And however, I thought, well, after many moments of ignoring it, I wondered if there could be something in it that could be exciting, like a point of healing or a site of potential. So I thought tentatively, okay, I'll unearth some of this. I'll find out, what this was all about. And I recognized really quickly I just couldn't remember anything. Couldn't remember how old I was, how long I was in there, what really had gone on. There was so many blank spots. And then I received all my medical history. I thought, okay, I'm going in. And we did some research and development with a group of dancers. We had a therapist with us. I received all my medical notes. I spoke to the hospital. I unearthed everything, people I was in there with. And it was really painful, and it was really traumatic, and it made me feel quite poorly, actually. And I thought how wonderful it was that my body and my mind had let me forget. And that was actually a gift. And I wondered actually if the forgetting could be the most wonderful reward, if the forgetting could be the feeling, if the failing could be the feeling, actually. There's so much in life now of generating and presenting your best self. And I wondered actually if I could find connection with people through my failing. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go there. And I instead decided to write this nursery rhyme, which is what A Wound with Teeth became, a series of nursery rhymes reconstructed and then forming into my own language of what that could be. And of course, nursery rhymes are scary and built for discipline in some ways, and but also there's something in the making something for children that I think is really important. And this idea of the potential of children started to feel important, and it started to then connect to my younger self at that time. And perhaps the process then became of a slightly subverted healing journey that would allow for me to do the authentic work that I was commissioned, but also reimagine it with joy and beauty. Yeah, and
like a rewriting of that history.
That time, right.
It is an incredible creation of our beings that there is this ability to totally eradicate from our mind the experiences that we can't.
Yeah, it's wild.
We're not ready to remember, maybe. Right. But then also your ability to convert it into something magical and different to the way that it was first experienced. Experiencing such adversity at a young age and spending that year in hospital, did dance have a significance in your recovery and healing at that time?
I mean, it did, mostly because I wasn't allowed to do it. I wasn't allowed to exercise, and I wasn't allowed to do like rigorous physical activity. And that then became such a huge incentive for me to get out, because dancing was it's really all I know. It's all I've done all my life. And so
prior to hospital as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it became a really good source of what I had to do, why I had to be well. Yeah.
Did your approach to dance from before you went to hospital and then when you left, did your approach to dance change?
I think it did, because I was taken out of school and I was taken out of the structures that we hold things in a very simple sense. And I didn't, after this stint in hospital, I didn't get into all the schools I wanted to go to. And of course that was another stick to beat myself with, I'd ruined my life. But actually it was such a huge gift, because it, first of all, made me really chippy, made me certain that I was going to achieve through my own way and through my own route. And it, I think, meant that I had to decide what choreography was going to look like for me without institutional force. Not force, but like
restriction.
Yeah, I guess.
I've never met anyone who had such an extreme experience who transformed it into dance in such a way, and I've never really heard of it either. It's really interesting to me that you talk about it as a failure in a way. When you say failure, do you mean how you felt at the time, or does it still feel that way?
Look, I think that I and many of us, we exist in these like multi-paralleled realms of being who we think we are, who we think the world sees of us, what we really are, what our truth is. I think that when I talk about failure, this is with a warm heart and open arms. I think that the failings have been always my gifts, and so I really see failure in quite a different way to perhaps its more normative description. I see it as my guiding little route, something like this.
Almost like a lesson.
Yeah.
Or
like bigger than a lesson, like you can let it be, you can let it completely overwhelm and govern, and then you can choose the sweet spot inside it and shine away from it. You can move with it.
There's this amazing contrast between the world that encourages us to disconnect, dissociate, and be distracted from our kind of core being and existence. And A Wound with Teeth is such an incredible embodiment, and the opposite of that. Was the kind of memory loss that you talk about, was that a means of survival?
Yeah, I mean, I believe so. And there was a lot of things I found out in my medical history that I don't remember, and I still can't remember. Quite shocking things that I can't remember happening. As a young woman. So for sure, I think that my person tried to find a solution, and it was that. I'd never really thought of it as dissociation actually until very recently. I hadn't really considered, when it's yourself, I guess you try not to situate yourself simply, but actually reading about it seems quite classic. But yeah, I think it was survival. Yeah.
It's so interesting that even now there are things that you still totally can't remember. What's that like in terms of your recovery process and your pain?
Since accepting that being in recovery is actually going to be a lifelong thing, forever, I'm at much more peace and freedom from it, knowing that I have to elicit moments of control in order to feel structured, but just a little bit, not too much. I try and see everything I have, which is a lot, and I try and look at my children and see how joyful and full of potential they are. And look there, look forward, not always look back too much.
It's so true, because I think there's this interesting thing where there is a past that we ignore, that it becomes more and more at the forefront, and in accepting it, it's sort of, it's the first step of it sort of dissipating.
Right.
Which
right.
kind of leads on to my next question, which is, do you think that pain has a beginning, a middle, and an end in terms of becoming free from it?
I, in my heart, I don't think, but I love that idea. And I wonder if even when things are potentially somewhat unachievable, it's really healthy to consider there's a fragmented way of organizing it in your body or in your mind. I think that that's really healthy. I'm not sure it's how I manage myself. But I love that it's something to aspire to. You know, an acceptance, a process, and closure.
Well, I suppose it's probably just always changing.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that's
yeah,
like
yeah.
a great thing
and
to hold
that's the
on
other thing,
to.
isn't it, right? You get older, you learn more, your life changes.
And its significance changes,
Exactly.
meaning it changes its relevance to your life and what that is.
Yeah.
Do you think in that process your mind and body are almost separate realms, or are they integrated?
I think at my worst, they become incredibly separated.
Like a floating head.
Yeah, just like a watching of a rehearsal, and at its best, it's there's a wonderful synergy, and what helps me find that is dancing. You know, dancing helps me stick back together, glue back together.
Has dance helped you kind of confront the fear and approach kind of pain with curiosity, as opposed to this zone that cannot be entered?
For sure it has. You know, there would be some moments in rehearsal, like with a very close collaborator of mine, Grace Jabari, who was with me when I was like at a real low in finding out some difficult stuff. And I mean, we would thrash around in the studio, and there was also a lot of laughing, you know, a lot of hilarity of what are we doing here, and why are we moving in this way, and why is rhythm a part of what happens when we dance? Why is that relative? Why is it important? Why is it essential, actually?
In your life, you've found movement and your creative practice to be a real life force. Has that kind of unlocked truths that words fail to capture sometimes?
I mean, yeah, without a doubt. You know, dancing is so crucial and essential to who I am and my well-being. And as we said before, I think it supersedes restriction and barriers that perhaps things like language, by definition, have to hold. Movement and dancing is all of those most nuanced parts of ourselves that help deliver, transcend, expel all of the biggest of feelings. And of course, it can be in its most pedestrian form too. If we think of some of the greats, like think of Pina, it would often just be the way in which someone walked from one side of the room to the next. You know, it doesn't have to be this exuberant, you know, piece. It can be sometimes the most held beauty can be in the most simple of action. For me.
What would a kind of pedestrian way of holding that be?
Perhaps it's not the pedestrian action itself, but the emotion that sits inside it. Perhaps it's that feeling.
Like how you experience waiting at the bus stop.
Exactly. Or how my daughter tries to stroke the cat. Or, when someone has a really elegant way of organising their handbag, and you think, wow, my rehearsal director Shirai is like this. Everything is organised and her hands are always moisturised.
It's so refreshing to think about that process as being something that can be very simple and just in the quiet gestures that happen in everyday life. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's amazing performances that you create, like A Wound with Teeth, which is confronting trauma in a raw and pure way of storytelling. Do you think that there's a certain emotional intelligence that is innate within our bodies, and it's something that if we listen to happens, as opposed to something that you have to think into existence?
Yeah, I totally think that. I think sometimes the most courageous thing to do is to simplify and to accept who we are, or even celebrate and present who we are. That takes courage, especially in the climate that we live in.
It's so refreshing to hear that process can come from the small little details in life that are part of every day. Because watching your performance, I found that it touched on, the real paradoxes of human nature, which feel very far away sometimes if you're going through something or you're disconnected or unsure. In relation to sensuality, sexuality, and empowerment within our bodies, has choreography become a kind of language that you can communicate through?
I mean, yeah, it's everything. It's all communication to me. This is why sometimes I struggle with having to write program notes. I actually really love writing, like I said, but I sometimes would much rather for you to allow for it to feel like a book, that, and I mean that in the sense, when something's really amazing and you're certain it's been written about you. I want my work to do that, and I don't want to always be so explicit and specify too much, because I think when it can, wash you in such a way that reaches that point of connection, you'll decide on your own stories. And I think for me, like, the most gorgeous work is made that way. I always talk about Sopranos, right? And I love Sopranos so much, but it was always for me often the scenes in which people would just be the family would just be milling about the kitchen, where they'd really sing, and I'd think I understand this dynamic now through so little, and so I hope that's the way in which people can connect with it.
You know what's amazing? I wasn't planning on disclosing this necessarily, but I actually reached out to Holly kind of as a fan, just because I thought that it was so brilliant what you were doing. And I just wanted to connect, and then we connected, and it actually turned out that the things that I had gathered from the experience of watching your shows had real truth to them, and that's something really magical.
For me, it's magical, yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously I'm not the only person.
I more mean it's magical for me that you had that experience.
And that's the incredible thing about the arts and their ability to move you, actually, in a way that, I don't know, when I was a sort of moody teenager, I was unmovable.
Right.
And I think that's the sort of resistance to hurt, kind of, in a way. What's your starting point when you're planning a performance? And to what level do you kind of involve the dancers in the sentiment that you're feeling and your own emotional process?
Well, this work, I mean, I often work in similar ways, but it begins mostly with writing. and collating ideas, images. Make these boards, which are in my studio, and then I tend to go in the studio by myself for a while and make some material on myself, and then
is that like a poetry or kind of short form notes or like essays?
Is in the writing?
Yeah,
it's often like a script.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not, you don't.
But when I say a script, sometimes it's probably a bit unreadable. And it's not necessarily totally formulaic. It might just be the way the mind wanders and starts to think about both context and thematics at once. But yeah, then I'll go in the studio and I'll make some stuff, and I'll listen to a lot of music. Music informs a lot of what I do, because I'm really interested in why we dance to music, or are urged to. Then I meet with the dancers, I teach it to them, I change it loads when I see how it actually reads on other bodies. And then I work with them collaboratively as well. So I'll have an idea and I'll run a big improvisation that could go on for ages. And I'll suggest different ideas, and sometimes I whisper to them as we go. No one's allowed to break the sewing once we've started sewing. So, but sometimes I'll say, go and try this, or go and try that, or I'll push someone together. And then often I'll say, look, this is the feeling. So how does that relate to where you are now in your body in this room?
So it's almost like a collective expression.
Yeah, it becomes that for sure.
So cool. Do you find that there are different kinds of music or rhythm that different people are better suited to?
I think that when it's really, really working, it's often when we are landing there together. So we might use varying temp tracks, and then, when we work with Gwilym, he'll make something, and then we'll play it in the studio really loud, and we know when it's right, when everyone's like yelling and jumping up and down, because it's euphoric. We found the energy that it needs, and that's always like when we know it's right. So I think that for sure, like, everybody has different access points, but yeah, I think when you find the unity is when it's really born, when it really becomes what it's meant to be.
So cool that it's this multifaceted process where it's not just your instruction, it's their interpretation, your interpretation of that, the music and everything. Because there are times in my life where what works for me will be like a thumping beat, and there are other times where it's more acoustic and chilled. For me to, like, I don't know, shuffle around here, who knows.
And they're good, on this last process, I really wanted them to know who they were in the work. Like, I wanted to know how old they were, what their names were, what their stories were, who they were in relation to everybody else. And I wanted them to know it more than I knew it, so that when I could ask them, they would have all the answers, but they would also say to me, no, she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't go down there in that way. So it became quite like this amazing dialogue where you form the village.
Wow.
And that was exciting. That's I think for me, with working with them for so many years, like a long time of developing, that's when it's really glorious.
And it really touches on what this podcast is about, actually, because it's like many different voices and many people's stories that can help to change each of us individually. Obviously, professional dance is not for the faint-hearted, and it's something that involves, I imagine, so much pain physically and psychologically. What keeps you kind of embodied and actually wanting to return to it, rather than just like walking off at the end of a project when you're a bit broken, presumably?
With dancing, I don't perform, but I dance constantly, and it's something that I don't have agency of. It calls me and it decides it's time, and I have to do it. Like, I don't mean to sound however that sounds, but that's really how I experience.
Sounds great.
That's really how I experience it. Like, I need. It's a huge need that won't let me not go there. And it's different for the dancers. I mean, they are working long days, long hours, extremely repetitive, extremely exhausting and physical. But I'm fortunate. I think I'm fortunate because the people I tend to collaborate with are often quite a hedonistic bunch, and so they enjoy the rigor, and the pain becomes informative, and they'll rehearse all day, and they'll party, and they'll come to rehearsal all the next day. Like, there seems to be no way of satisfying the amount of
the hunger for it.
Yeah.
I think that must exist in all of us in some kind of way, not just for dance, but for means of expression and not being so academic about everything.
Yeah. Being a bit more experiential and with the sort of gut of it, I guess.
Totally. How can you use dance and movement as a tool for moving through adversity, whether that's physical or psychological? Maybe it's grief. What?
I mean, we all know the body holds the score, right? The idea that you can mobilize yourself away from pain, I believe it to be true. I know it to be true for me. I think that I think you can liberate so much tension from the body by, of course, just like moving it. But it's like a stimulation in something in the mind too, isn't it? And allowing, as you've spoken about a lot with me, the connection between the mind and the body, because there's so much separation in the way we consider it in a Western sense. Yeah.
There have definitely been times for me where it's been harder to kind of loosen up. And at the time...
What do you mean?
So, rejecting that call to free movement.
I see.
Being very controlled.
I see.
And that's ridiculous. Or whatever. Or, I only want to sing in my car when no one's around. I mean, I still only want to sing in my car when no one's around. But the self-conscious containment that we create for ourselves, I imagine that there are people who feel blocked in that way. And where do you think someone who's obviously not so good at dancing or not accustomed to that ability to move freely, where can they start? Is it in the shower, in the living room, going to dance classes?
Go to a party and just see. I mean, some of those moments I've had have just been the most informative and extraordinary, of just being without inhibition and without outward looking. But I think any movement practice, I think yoga's incredible, I think running's incredible. I think you have to find your thing, right? But I guess I keep talking about my kids, but because I do, because they're so uninformed in a way. They're so free, and so they're so worth watching to me. They're without all the shit we've developed, and we will just put music on in the house in the evening almost every night, and we just dance in the house.
That's so fun.
I think a lot of people do it, but it's I think
not everyone has you as their guide though.
Well, they don't take me seriously in any way at all, so they yeah, it's but it's less about constructing some kind of thing. It's more about just be. Takes courage, I guess, right? I mean, not that. I mean, I'm imagining some people thinking, well, I'm not going to go to a party and dance. I know I'm not. That's the bit that takes courage.
Yeah.
To care less.
Yeah.
To do less.
Yes. I actually went to this. It was like an improvised dance event where they basically play music. There's no spectating.
Yeah, it's a Gaga.
Yes.
Gaga, yeah.
Yes. And I did it at a time when I was feeling really low in confidence. And the reason I did it is because I guess I was like, well, maybe I'll just do something really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think it's...
And it was so liberating because I kind of started out as being a lemon in the corner, kind of judging everyone. Because they were freer than I was. And then eventually I kind of just forgot about that, and it was really freeing. I didn't feel comfortable necessarily, but it was fun to drop a sense of pride. And it's I am really bad at this, and that's fine.
But it's that maybe satisfied something.
Yeah, definitely. What role do you think intention and attention plays in moving through pain or a recovery process of any kind?
I think setting intentions is really good, even if that's I'm going to be soft, and paying attention, that's almost harder, isn't it? Like, actually, I'm just going to really pay attention for a second and listen to what this could be curious as well to what it might be saying or telling me. I think there are essential things that are really hard, Do you think?
Yeah, you don't always need like a catastrophe
No.
for life
Almost
to feel...
never, right?
Yeah. It's almost like the subtle things that can creep up on you.
And that's what I mean by the
Loneliness as well.
littleness,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think, obviously there's finding that sense of freedom and movement within yourself, but what role do you think that attention that you give to what's actually going on around you or inside you, what role does communicating between people have?
I do sometimes wonder if we involve too much introspection. And actually, certainly with choreography, I can often find that giving something too much consciousness can destroy it. Like, it can be in its most embryonic form, messy as well, unstructured, and then it's really, it's really singing. So I think that it's a marriage of balance, isn't it? Like
imperfection.
Yeah, like honouring it, and also knowing that sometimes staring for too long isn't actually the thing.
Yeah, you can lose trust in it with the overthinking.
Yeah, you can ruin it.
What do you think the greatest tool or practice has been for you in your own journey, moving through pain and recovery and overcoming?
Well, it's, of course, I'll say dancing is the greatest tool for overcoming. And I guess if I wonder what that is, it's a sharing, and it's a saying, hey, I'm a failure, and that's great. And I'll share it with you and hope you'll share it with me. I think it would be a much softer, tender place if we were allowing for each other to be like that a little bit more.
And also, let's just acknowledge that that's actually a really hard thing to do,
right.
And actually a real success to aspire to. I mean, I still find it really hard to talk about things when things are hard.
Yeah, and don't forget as well, we can also rehearse. We rehearse a cover story. We rehearse a way in which to describe our things to the world so that it's held.
If you had a minute or so to pass on a message that you feel yourself in the past, anyone listening or the world as a whole needed to hear, what would that be?
It would be that I truly believe that we're full of potential, and I truly believe that we are living in heaven in a way. If you're as fortunate as I am, and most of us are, it's all around us. All the magical, wonderful things are all around us if we're willing to see it. And I think that we have to be available to accept joy and available to accept all the things of beauty around us, and to use those to save one another. And
that can be within you as opposed to a Ferrari or something.
Yeah, I mean, we're all of it. We are made up of what we have done as an individual. We're individuals. And I think it's not to forget how powerful that is, how powerful you are.
That's such a lovely message. It's such a privilege to have got to have this conversation with you, Holly. And it's an honour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of I'm Fine. I hope you loved it as much as I did. I personally found my experience of doing this conversation with Holly so illuminating, and there was so much of it that came out that I wasn't expecting. So much of the time I kind of imagine how it's going to go in the process of research and coming up with the idea for the episode. And this was truly one that just went so far beyond that. And I loved how poetic Holly was when talking about her understanding of pain, the details in life that can be a marker for where we're really at. A theme that we're exploring in this series is creativity and how creativity interacts with pain and how pain interacts with life. And I was so inspired and blown away to hear how Holly has used her talent as a dancer and her experience with pain to create some of the most unique and groundbreaking performances. Thank you so much for tuning in. I can't tell you how grateful I am for your support. To support I'm Fine more, please subscribe to the channel and follow us on Instagram for updates. And I really look forward to seeing you next time.